I heard an idea once that changed my understanding of evil. It came from a teacher, and he was talking about a text in the Torah that says evil cannot live on its own. It is parasitic. It feeds on what is good, twists it, and drains it of life. Think about that. Nobody sets out to love evil for its own sake. What they end up doing is applauding the destruction of good, mocking light, celebrating cruelty, or standing by silently when darkness moves in. That is how evil survives. It cannot create, it can only corrupt. The sages of Israel taught that to celebrate evil, or even to remain indifferent in its presence, is to be complicit in it. The Talmud says that when someone applauds the shedding of innocent blood, they are not neutral bystanders. They are sharers in the guilt. We can see this in action around us all the time. The hate speech that spreads online, the cruel joke that gets a laugh, the corruption that goes unchecked, the injustice that we ignore, the stories we choose not to hear. These are all instances of evil. But what makes them evil is not just the acts themselves. It is the fact that somewhere, somehow, someone gave them space, gave them air, gave them permission. What does it say about us? In order to survive, evil needs us, not because it is weak, but because it is bottomlessly destructive. If left to its own devices, it would devour everything. It needs us because it wants to be everywhere. And the way it insinuates itself into our lives is not always obvious. Sometimes it comes cloaked in respectability, hiding behind positions of authority, wealth, or influence. Sometimes it hides behind custom or tradition, wearing a mask of legitimacy. Sometimes it is simply buried under layers of busyness and distraction. But however it presents itself, the truth remains that wherever evil finds purchase in our lives, it begins to take root in our hearts. Christians echo this. Paul writes in Romans 1 that the true horror of sin is not only doing evil, but giving approval to those who do it. He saw that applause is fuel for wickedness. Evil thrives where silence, passivity, or approval exist. And while this might seem like a harsh indictment, it is actually an honest assessment. The times when we have seen evil given free rein are precisely the times when people looked away, when they chose not to care, when they found it easier to shrug at injustice than to speak up against it. We all have moments like this in our lives, times when we could have done something but didn't. And the danger is that these moments compound, snowballing into a lifetime of regret and complicity. Jewish wisdom has a piercing saying, "Silence is agreement." If you stand by when evil happens and say nothing, you have already said enough. It's a sobering thought, but necessary nonetheless. We must recognize that each one of us has the ability to be part of the solution or part of the problem, and the difference often lies not in what we do, but in what we allow. Now, don't misunderstand it. I am not suggesting that every instance of evil requires an equal and opposite response. We cannot single-handedly undo every instance of suffering or injustice. But what I am suggesting is that within our spheres of influence, in our homes, workplaces, schools, and communities, we cannot afford to be passive. We cannot give evil the gift of our silence. And here is the key insight. Evil can only be defined in contrast to good. That is how we even know it exists. You can only call evil if you first believe good is possible. You can only call oppression evil if you first believe justice and freedom are good. Evil has no independent existence. It is a shadow cast by the light of what is right. That is why Jewish thought says evil is parasitic. It cannot stand on its own. It feeds off the good it is trying to destroy. Now here is the mirror moment. Ask yourself honestly, what do you applaud? What do you celebrate? If we clap at cruelty or shrug at corruption, we are feeding the wrong side of the Yetzer Hara, the inclination toward evil. But when we celebrate kindness, righteousness, compassion, justice, that is how we feed the Yetzer Hatov, the inclination toward good. And what we feed grows. So the question becomes, what kind of world are we building? Every cheer, every silence, every click, Every word builds something. Evil thrives in silence, but goodness thrives when it is named, celebrated, and chosen. The sages say that every soul has the power to tip the balance of the entire world toward the side of good or evil. Imagine that. You may think your choices are small, inconsequential even, but if your silence can fuel evil, then your voice can strengthen good. If your approval can corrode, then your refusal can preserve. This is why both Judaism and Christianity insist that judgment is real. Justice will come. God sees not only the acts of evil, but the applause it receives. He also sees every act of courage, every word spoken for good, every time someone refused to laugh when others mocked. Nothing is wasted. So here is the call. Stop feeding evil with silence. Do not give it your laughter, your applause, your indifference. Instead, feed the good. Name it. Celebrate it. Live it. Because in the end, good does not just resist evil, it outlives it. And with that said, let us transition to our featured quote of the week. It comes from Thomas Merton, a Trappist monk, poet, and social activist. In a deeply polarized time, he wrote, "We must learn to live together as brothers, or we find no future as individuals." These words challenge us to look beyond our differences, to recognize our shared humanity, and to seek common ground. They remind us that our individual futures are intertwined and that embracing our interconnectedness is essential for building a better world. And here is the second quote. It is from Mahatma Gandhi, the leader of India's independence movement. He said, "Be the change that you wish to see in the world." These words encapsulate the essence of making a difference. They urge us to be the change we want to see, not just to wish for it or talk about it, but to embody it in our actions and live it in our daily lives. They inspire us to be agents of positive change rather than passive observers. And now we move to the final part of our show. As we wrap up today's episode, I want to share a story that beautifully illustrates the power of speaking up against evil. In 1964, 4 young black students were at a lunch counter in Greensboro, North Carolina. They were there to sit at the counter, which was reserved for white customers only. When they refused to leave after being repeatedly asked to do so, they were met with hateful stares and threats. Soon, more students joined them in their peaceful protest. And despite facing verbal and physical abuse, they continued to sit there. The local media started covering the event, bringing national attention to the blatant racism they were experiencing. As days turned into weeks, public opinion began to shift. People started questioning the need for racial segregation, and eventually, the lunch counter was desegregated. This simple act of courage had a ripple effect, inspiring similar protests across the South and contributing to the dismantling of Jim Crow laws. It reminds us that one person's bravery can spark a movement and that choosing to speak up against injustice can create lasting change. If you resonated with the ideas we explored today, I invite you to engage with us further. Share your thoughts, experiences, or insights in the comments below. Your voice matters. Together, we can continue the conversation and make a difference in the world. Before we part ways, I want to encourage you to subscribe to our channel. We release new videos every week, each offering a fresh perspective on living a meaningful life. If you've enjoyed this episode, please hit the like button. It helps us reach more people with our message. Also, make sure to check out our podcast. Every Wednesday, we release new episodes, each a deep dive into the questions that matter most. Thanks for joining me today. May you find strength and inspiration in these words as you navigate your journey. Until next time, stay curious, stay compassionate, and above all, stay courageous.